Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to All Four Back, episode 62. I'm, of course, Chester 430, and tonight I'm joined, as always, by my co-broadcaster and new bestie, Shads. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, darling. Hello, everyone.
Oh, brilliant! Good to see you back, mate. I know we had a bit of a
you see
my
back quite a lot on the track, don't you?
Not in Heat 2, I didn't know. There we
go. 3 times.
All right. And coming in place of Haddington tonight, who's off on the duties, we have our stand-in producer, Mr. BenThompson. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, gents, and good evening, all.
Good evening. Naked
BenThompson.
Bit of a reaction to that graphic you had there, Ben. Anyways.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, on tonight's program, we have a bit of a bumper show tonight for you guys. We're going to look back at the BGP and SCS Round 4, which took place at Chorzoff. We have, of course, the second legs of the Knockout Cup reviews to look back on. And then we have the all-important Rider of the Week, which Shads has been thinking long and hard about for the last few days. And then, of course, we have... 2 minutes. We have the all-important pairs and reserves pairs draw taking place at Peterborough, I believe, on Tuesday and Wednesday. So that'll be one to look forward to. So without any further ado, let's crack on with the show. So first off, we had the BGP taking place at Chorzoff Round 4. And this one saw, for only the second time in BGP history, a 21-point maximum from Newcastle Wolves skipper Sizzler, who took the win. And by the looks of it, he was nigh on untouchable. Ben, I understand you have some notes about this meeting.
Yeah, I actually spent a bit of time, which is not like me. But anyway, so... I think for me, I think obviously, as you've said, is that Sizzler's obviously the standout. I think, did we say first time since season 18 when it was Wolf as a wild card. So obviously for him, absolute standout. I think apart from that, if you look at some other riders. That had good performances with that, I think is, Le Saucier, in my practice server, he said he was expecting it to be a long night, and obviously racked together 8 points, and unfortunately missing out in the semi. But I think that for me was a good standout. From the meeting, I think your boy Craig bouncing back to sort of what you expect as a performance, of 16 points. I think that again, and when you move on to the Knockout Cup match later on in the show, I think this week's been Craig's bounce back week. For both scenes, really. Fakey again, been, if you look back at the sort of the series, not really been the Fakey that we probably expect. But actually, I think in this round he did bounce back to some sort of 11 points of what you would expect him to score, really. And I think also, you could say some of these riders have benefited from other riders having sort of, shock performances, really. But I think 3 big standout shock performances to me anyway, which, again, what I say about Craig taking it forward to the Knockout Cup, his captain in Bobby seemed to take his GP form into the Knockout Cup as well. And that was quite a shock of 4 points. I mean, I wouldn't expect Bobby to score only 4 points in the GP, especially where he was currently sat in the series sort of standings. My other one, Cappy. Obviously now the Panthers #1. Again, quite a shock to only see him score 4. And was that practice time though, Shads?
No. Cappy was drunk.
Oh, okay.
He showed us a case of lager in the afternoon, and he said he was going to get through the lot.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I missed that in the Panthers chat.
It was in the Panthers chat. He posted a picture of his dining table, and it had a case of lager on it. And I think he went through the lot.
Right.
That was his excuse.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then obviously the other one after winning the last round was obviously TJ, only scoring 3, which was quite a shock. I mean, some people might say Mackinnon as well, only scoring 1, but if you look back at his previous rounds within this series, but actually, he's now not riding in the league. I know he's got other things going on as well, which is obviously why he's had to drop out of the league. So that maybe contributes towards that score. And to be honest, I had in the back of my head before that meeting, I didn't think he would show up for the meeting because of the things outside of the game that he had on. So that sort of one, it wasn't really a shock. But as I say, the other 3, definitely a shock for me. And, as you say, the biggest outstanding faultless, you can't call it anything else, faultless performance was from Sis. And obviously the new track record as well, within that meeting. So, from me, when you move on to the SCS, obviously there was something going on in their household that evening.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to the Craig situation, he did see me on at training last night, and he said, "Are you doing the podcast tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I'm doing the podcast." So, and make sure to G me up. I've done some good scores this week. I was like, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do." And then BenThompson, bang, straight in for me. So there you go. Thanks, Ben.
It's all right, no problem.
How insecure is Craig? Jesus.
Shads, of course, you were in this match as well, mate. A bit of a disappointing night for yourself, only scoring 5 points. But again, with the level,
that's a good night. That's a good night for me.
Yeah, the level of riders that were doing well that night. I mean,
yeah,
it was There
was a definite gap in class between like the top 6 and the rest of us. It was tough. It was very tough. It's just unusual to ride a GP on a track without any holes in it. I think they do better on the tracks that were dodgier than the tracks that were just like throttle open, and it was no surprise. It was no surprise really. I mean, especially with the lack of lines on it. It was basically just the one line, and if you don't gate, it's very hard to pass, especially against the likes of Craig, Powis, and Sizzler, and that lot. But like Ben said, there was a few very, very unusually dodgy performances. Like you said, Bobby, I don't know what the hell was happening there. I think Mackinnon's, like you said, is having problems with his shifts or something. His work shifts don't help. But not, and also like you said, Becky's scoring well. It's always difficult to come into these meetings when you're not racing regularly. Getting sort of not match fit, but match sharp. But Locker seems to be managing fine, even though he's not racing regularly. I think he's had one guest appearance this season, but he's not racing regularly, and he seems to be picking up points sort of most rounds, so he's doing okay.
Yeah, I agree with that, Shay. Of course, having these ones that don't ride regularly are still, mixing up with the big boys, of course, as we always say. Now, of course, with that 21-point max that Sizzler got, it does change the league table somewhat, very substantially. It puts Sizzler now on top on 62 points. the early leader, Steph, he's now dropped down to joint second with Powis. And with that 12-point haul, Dret Lotzka has now shot himself up to P4. Ben, of course, we're now sort of only 3 rounds to go. This is still anyone's meeting, isn't it? Anyone's championship. Looking at how the scores are so close together.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, and for me, you could have said there was a top 5. But obviously, as I said in before, is obviously with Bobby dropping sort of what you might class as a clanger. That's sort of now, I think, with 3 rounds to go, I think that's probably brought it to a 4-horse race. Maybe if Dret Locker gets in there, you know. But I think realistically, the way the top 3 are performing, I think you've got to probably say it's a top 3 now, between the 3 of them. 13 points the difference from Dret Locker. I know that's only 1 meeting, but I think with how consistent the top 3 are, I think even 13 with 3 rounds to go is a difficult task to do. You're not. I wouldn't expect the top 3 to drop that many points to close. At the same rate as well, to allow somebody else to catch up. So I think you've got to say the top 3 is probably set in stone. The finishing positions, I think that's where the question is, with only 3 points between the 3 of them. But personally, I think the way Sizzler's going, especially, if he keeps doing, gating the way he is, and without me licking the rim, I think Sizzler's got a chance of being, GP champion this year. But we'll have to see how it all develops. Obviously, I only see the end results because I'm obviously reffing the SCS at that time. But yeah, I think Sizzler's got a chance.
Wow. Shads, do you agree with what Ben said there, with Sizzler having, a decent shot at becoming champion this year?
Absolutely. Looking at the tracks that are left, you've got Norwich, which is like a big fast track, isn't it? And then you're finishing off with a tiny little circle track in America, Pirate Speedway.
Yeah, Pirate Speedway.
You got. And I'm not sure what the Argentinian track's like, Bahia Blanca. I think that's sort of something in the middle. So you've got 3 sort of different looking tracks coming up. So it's going to be a real test of the rider's skill. It's not going to be a throttle job, I don't think. But it's definitely a more exciting GP and SCS than last season for the top 3 anyway.
Yeah.
You're still looking at sort of like positions 9, 10, maybe even going down to Mackinnon for qualification for next season as well. I mean, you look the likes of Squall, Cappy, they've only got to slip up a couple of times, have a couple of bad meetings or one bad meeting, and they're going to be out the top 8. But it's still, there's something to play for at the top and sort of like in the middle as well.
I mean, you're even in that equation, Chads.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you look at TJ, you look at yourself, Chads, you're 21, the same as Mackinnon.
On paper, but we need more tracks with holes in them.
Need to slip on that 1000cc machine, Shads.
I think that 8 points in round 2 is a bit of a blip. I don't think that's not going to be replicated. I don't think, not unless I find some magic gating formula.
Craig Harrell saying, "Come down to Poole, Shads. You'll love it, mate."
My daughter lives in Poole.
Well, there you go then. Oh, brilliant. So, of course, Sizzler's a big win there in the BGP. Puts him now top of the BGP standings. And, of course, the same night we had the SCS. And, again, this one saw the JC taking his 4th consecutive final, and he finally got the win. So congratulations to JC for doing that, finishing on 17 points. But again, Ben, as you said, the Sizzler household was quite entertaining on that night because, of course, Owen scoring 19 points, top scoring.
Yeah, I think dropping the 2 points. I mean, obviously, I saw most of the rides. It was certain races I didn't see because I was the non-rider to help speed up the race a bit more, and obviously with the no first bend rule anymore, it didn't really need me to watch that first bend, so I could do that. But yeah, as you say, I mean, only dropping 2 points. Some would have thought it was Sis riding at some points.
That has been said.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the semi one gate and ride. I mean, once he was out the gate, there was nobody catching him. In the final, he was a good race, and he was just unlucky that JC got the beating of him. And so, as you say, some people would question it. Not myself, because I know how hard it is to race, let alone do it on 2 meetings. But again, as a wild card, stepping into the meeting, I know he's been going really well in the league. But to come into a meeting alongside the riders that are in this series, I mean, great performance in my eyes. Again, with somebody else who I thought had a great performance was Craigie Hill. Certainly just dropping in, and I think the scariest thing for some teams in the league is if you can carry that form into the league for the Dragons. I think as your first meeting of the season, and you can pull that score out. I mean, I wish I could do that riding every week. Let alone as just a one-off. I know he's been in servers and team servers and things like that, and I know he spends a lot of time with us at the Panthers. But until he's moved to Dragons, obviously. But to do that is just, again, outstanding performance. I had wrote a little bit about myself, but I'm not going to really mention it. But again, for myself, dropped easy points. Heat 1 was in third. Difference between a semi and not a semi. Heat 9 and Heat 13 going wide to try and get speed instead of blocking. So that was my semi out, which then also sort of leads me to one of my little moans, which I know we've moaned about sort of a couple of weeks, is the sort of Rico cam situation with laptops. So for me, if you look at Heat, where was it? Heat 6, for example. I mean, you look how well Rico was actually riding. I know he got last in his final ride. But if you look at the people he was riding against in his final ride in Heat 20, that's a difficult race. But that could have been the difference there. Hadn't, again, deserved his semi spot. But actually, if I'd have picked up a point, elsewhere, which, as I said, in Heat 1, I could have easily done if I hadn't have hit the fence on the last corner, is that actually, if Rico had rode in Heat 6, that could have been the difference between me getting a semi and not getting a semi, And I'm not saying that just because that's myself. As the referee, I've seen that's happen in previous rounds with other riders that have then, just missed out on a semi-final place. And then when you look at some of the heats, it is those heats that have been the determining factor on that person getting a semi or not getting a semi. You know, and it's difficult. It's difficult because obviously we do want to include everybody, and we don't want to sort of say, well, you know, you can't ride in this meeting because you're sharing a laptop, you know, and Rico and Cam have earned their right to be in the series. But I feel like it's the thing of, well, you can't just, you know, because what's to say if it was Heat 1 and it was Rico in Heat 1 with Cam? Is he going to give up his spot? Because if he gives up his spot, then he's not going to be able to ride in the rest of the meeting because he's been excluded from his first race. That's what's in the rules. If you don't turn up for your first race, you're out the whole meeting. So is that scenario going to happen in Heat 1? You know,
I didn't think about that. Christ.
You know, it's not, is it? They're going to share a split screen because then Rico would be out the whole meeting, whether he's in chat or not. The rule states if you miss your first race, you're out of the meeting. So then that's why I say is that brings in a complete new scenario of, well, they would split the screen. So again, for their race, whether it's Heat 20 or Heat 1,
they've done it before, Ben.
Yeah, and as we've seen, because it's been shown on Discord, you know, pictures have been shared. You know, as I say, I've not got anything against either of them, but I just feel like not just myself, but other riders are potentially not achieving, you know, and I'm not saying they should be relying on it, but other riders as well are gaining points when they might not, you know, so they're getting semis when they might not be getting semis if Rico was to ride in that race, you know. So it's sort of one of them really, because actually both of them, you know, might be able to finish, you know, and get a win or a second. It might be both of them finishing last and third, but then that also then throws a complete blanket over the series standings because obviously every point goes towards the series. So the people that are in the standings above Cam or below Cam, well, he's sort of gaining points, sort of 1 point every single round. He can guarantee that 7 points throughout the series that he's getting automatically without having to worry about anything. So that's potentially putting a buffer above somebody else who's chasing him. So then that's disadvantaging that person chasing him. So if you look at it as a whole sort of landscape, really, is that I think it's just, it's that thing of, well, you've both entered the series, just sort of deal with it. You know, like
you've really given this some thought, haven't you?
Oh yeah. As I say, I wrote a lot of notes tonight, which normally I don't. I come on here and I sit and I go you know. So I wanted to try and put a bit of effort in this week.
Hang on a minute. This will be tearing up my notes because you just went through everything I was going to say. There you go. In the bin.
God, I wish I had one more often, Ben. This has been great.
Me and you can have a night off, Dan, can't we?
Yeah.
It's all right. I ain't even got to the other two moans either about that meeting.
Let's crack on.
So and then the other two little bits from that meeting that I sort of looked over was just obviously you know, just again the non-rider situations, and obviously I know Westy Boy for some reason had to pull out sort of like 4 or 5 minutes before the meeting. Obviously the method situation, again, it's sort of in my head it's like, well, you know, we want everybody to ride, but don't agree to ride and come in as cover if you're not going to turn up. You know, and then obviously the BW situation, you know, great guy, he's in the Panthers, you know, I have nothing against him, but You know, he said a couple of weeks ago that, you know, what's the point in practicing for 5 races when, you know, when it then puts you off on your league racing because it puts you out of consistency. Well, and what's the point in turning up? Well, you know, just you may as well just withdraw out the series and allow somebody, you know, like Craigie Hurl or even Tintin or someone like that to actually come in, or Owen, you know, and take those rides, because then it goes back to my Cam Rico situation. Having no riders, it's just gifting people points and not making it actually. It's a competitive series, but it's not a competition, if you know what I mean. When people are just, and that's including myself, I gain points from it, but I would rather be in a race of 4 riders than have a non-rider. And obviously, as referee, it makes it more difficult for me as well, having no riders, especially when they meet each other in the same race. When people are trying to concentrate on practicing or whatever in chat, and I'm having to say, "Can a filler come in? Can a filler come and do this? Can you know?" And so it's just sort of like, well, you know, if you don't want to ride in the series, fine. But when, you know, Shads is having to chase to find out, are you going to ride? You know, just say, you know, I haven't got time for it. That's fine. You know, nobody's going to have anything against you because you've held your hands up and says, I don't want to ride in the series. But actually, it gives somebody else a chance that, you know, because actually, if you look at Owen, if he was to walk into the series now on what he scored in the last round, the same as Craigie Hurl, you know, they could easily get automatic qualification for the series next year. And so they've been given a chance because somebody doesn't want to have a chance in it. You know, so and guaranteed if Bewitcher was to go into the SCS Challenge next year, he'd qualify for the series anyway. You know, with the
and then
sort
we're
of,
back to go on again.
yeah. But what I'm saying is that if he wanted to, it then gives him the choice. Whereas, you know, and if he would then, in my eyes, qualify because of the quality of rider he is. So is there any harm in stepping down and just saying, well, actually this season, give somebody else another chance and I'll have a think about it and have a go again next year? You know, because we don't know. It may be other things outside of the game, but he doesn't want to tell us that, you know. But unfortunately, we're not all Mystic Megs and we can't tell what's going on in personal lives.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's just that thing, well, you know, nobody's going to have anything against you. Just hold your hands up and, you know, say somebody else can have the position. You know, so that's my my rant's over for tonight, gents. You know, not really rants, really, just sort of like pointing out sort of facts and realization. You know, yes, it's a game, but there has to be some realism in it as well. You know, of people have to accept defeat or accept that they can't do everything. You know, that was my issue. I tried to do captain, referee, you know, and ride, and also, you know, take on the SCS series as a full-time referee, and it didn't work. So I had to hold my hands up and say, no, something's got to give. And for me, it was the captain bit, because then I could still have the fun parts of the game that I enjoyed. And I didn't get stressed over, because it was the captain bit that was stressing me out and making me not want to play the game. You know, so there's no harm in just saying, accepting defeat and, you know, give somebody else a chance.
Craig's just said, all you need to do is make up 30 points over the final 3 rounds, Ben. You'll make it in the top 3. Job done. Well, with that, we're going to take a look at the SCS table now, and this round 4 certainly has a lot of DNRs, as you see there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total there. But of course, with that final win, JC moves into second place, 1 point behind current leader Jan, with 3 rounds to go. Shads, your thoughts on the SCS so far? I mean, with that JC win in round 4 puts him in good stead for the remaining 3 rounds.
Yeah, just like in the GP, it's looks like the top 3 are going to battle it out right to the end of the season. I'm not sure about Big Slow Canyon now after missing the meeting. I think he's like 15 points behind Jan now. I can't see how he's going to make up 15 points on Jan and 14 on JC. Maybe he might have a chance of making the top 3, but I think it's going to be a battle between those top 3. Now, I'd like to say personally, I think it's a battle between Jan and JC. I think JC's been very, very consistent this year. He seems to thrive since he dropped down. I think he struggled in the Grand Prix the last few seasons. And we know JC from years back is a lot better than what we've seen recently. I think, and also being in a team that's sort of like doing pretty well this season. I think he's thriving in it. I think it's going to be between Jan and JC, personally.
Cam's there put a bold prediction saying Big Slow Caney 21 point at the Pirate Speedway to win the SCS. Well, let's say he started well when he won the first round, but seemed to just falter a little bit. But he's still up there in top 4, so we'll see how it all pans out. So that was the BGP and SCS round 4 that took place at Chorzoff. We're now going to switch gears to the second legs of the semi-finals of the Knockout Cup. And first of all, we had the Newcastle Wolves taking on the Poole Cowboys. And from the first leg, the Wolves held a 16-point advantage going in to this home leg. And they came out dominant winners by 53 points to 37, winning on aggregate 106 to 74. And I'm going to start with you first, Ben. The Newcastle Wolves showing why the home form is so good this season.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think overall they've not just showed their home form. I think if you look back at the first leg, they've also shown that they can't be ruled out of the league title chase. And the one thing I pointed out to you both in the pre-pod chat was the 4 last places. You're not going to lose a meeting with 4 last places. For me, obviously, Rider of the Night has to be for Hadlington in that meeting. Has to be Hadlington. Great change in form, riding the way we know he can ride. And when you're scoring that out reserve, I think you're going to win the meeting. Looking at the heats themselves, I think on the night the nail in the coffin was heat 12, which Hadlington was involved in the 5-1 with Owen, which the original lineup with Wayne and JC, you certainly wouldn't have thought that that's going to be a home 5-1. And even with Hobnob in there, you would have thought that's JC's not going to get a third in there. There's going to be whether it's a shared heat or even a 4-2. But I think that 5-1 on the actual night score, I think, was put a nail in that comeback, even though I know they were sat 10 behind, but I think you would still think, well, we've got chance here over 4 heats to claw that back. But I think with that 5-1, that was just it. But if you look at the actual, again, another 5-1 that if you look at the aggregate comeback, I think was heat 3. I think before that, you would think as a Cowboy, oh yeah, we've got a chance to claw this back. I know it's only 2 points in front, but certainly as as a captain or as a Cowboys rider, you'd think, oh yeah, we got that in the first heat, and let's move on, let's do it. But then as soon as you get that 5-1 against you, you'd be like, well, yeah, I think that's put the nail in it for the actual tie. I mean, again, as I mentioned in the GP, obviously Bobby, very disappointing with that score. He must be disappointed himself with his own score, especially on the average, averages on. I mean, I think those averages. I don't think those averages on the SCS are the right ones, are they? Because looking at it, if they were, then Bobby surely via the rules would have to be at number 1. So is that not an illegal lineup? Looking at that now, I've not looked at that before, but I thought your highest average rider had to be at number 1.
Wrong averages.
Wrong averages, yeah. I was going to say there must be.
Yeah.
Paris is a 7-pointer now after the average changes.
Yeah.
So they've not been updated.
This was obviously the KO Cup. Obviously, averages don't count towards the KO Cups, do they? So that's
no. But I know they changed before, didn't they? They changed just before, didn't they?
They changed after the fifth league meeting last time out. No, those averages are wrong.
Yeah. So and then the other one for me was strange to see Lango back in as a guest after not riding for so long. And you would have thought at least running R&R after and there's nothing against Lango, but when somebody's not ridden the game for so long, you'd certainly expect from free rides that R&R would score more points, than 1 point, especially when every single rider could have taken a ride apart from Craig.
Yeah.
So you would have thought at least that would have been an R&R, especially with Hobnob at number 8. Bit of a strange one. Again, I know about giving everybody a chance to ride, but a bit of a strange one, really. Because as I say, even with Sudden in there, you'd expect him to score more than 1.
But Ben, don't you think that with the lineup the Cabos went for, it sort of smacks of giving up before you started?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, it all depends as well what was happening in training. Because I've been in that position as a captain where you're like, yeah, everybody's on it. It's going to be, and even you, Shads, will be able to say that this season we've been like that. Some meetings at the Panthers, we're all on it. We're hitting times. We're hitting times quicker than in meetings, and that's through from 1 to 7. And then all of a sudden you get in a meeting and it's like, well, where have those times disappeared to?
Yep, absolutely. When we're racing against each other, it seems to be a lot comes a lot easier than actually when you're racing in a meeting.
So I could be completely wrong, and Lango may have been absolutely nailing it in practice, but you'd still have that bit of, well, a 8-rider server is different to a 4-rider race. So
yeah,
and with him not riding for such a long time, then as you say, it does sort of seem like they had already given up before they started. And obviously Craig, I think, just turned up for routine Craig, what you'd expect. But I think the rest of the team, I mean, it was nice to see JC scoring 8. Above his average, what you'd expect. But yeah, I think, as you say, Shads, I think it looks like they may have sort of given up before a wheel had been turned.
I think expectations were pretty low before the meeting. It's probably like you said, they could have used try to replace someone. Where is Rotten gone? He's only ridden one meeting since he signed that.
Yeah,
I think he's missed 3 meetings. I think he rode in the first one, and he's missed the last 3. So I don't know where the hell he's disappeared to.
But I think that'll get and with when that comes over to the minimum, does Lango's previous meetings not count towards it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, a new signing takes on the maximum, the minimum ride of the rider we replaced. Although it doesn't really matter. This is KO Cup, so it doesn't count anymore.
Yeah, I know it's KO Cup, but this is why I think, is for the league situation, I
Oh,
think
here
he's
we
only
go.
got
Rotten's just
one.
moved house, Craig says. So he's
Right.
Yeah.
the
Okay.
internet.
So he'll be hopefully
That's fair enough.
back. Hopefully back in. But yeah, as I say, I think it was one of those where it was sort of a bit like us in our knockout cup against Dragons. In our second leg, let's use this as a sort of training. Let's use it as a to sort of get some practice in.
Get some laps under your belt in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of get to know the track a bit more as well. Because Cars have got to go there in the league, have they? As well, I think later on in the season.
We're
think
there.
so.
We're there in a week's time, I think.
Yeah,
Then as
we
well.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably that thing. Let's test what. Well, we've got the chance to. The likelihood of clawing this back. Well, let's have a test of, who can ride where to the best, and especially with only having to put your top rider at 1 and your bottom rider at 7. 7, 6. Your bottom 2 at 6 and 7 gives you the chance to have a little bit of a play around as a captain of pairings, things like that. So it may have been tactical to go with that team for a bit of practice, and as Shad said, just giving up on the tie.
Well, of course, with the new averages coming out for the next match, obviously the lineups will indeed change. So there'll be a few more surprises in store for the second half of the season, of course.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I say the Newcastle Wolves book their place in the grand final of the KO Cup, and they will be facing, and it pains me to say this, the Powder Hall Scorchers, as they took the Oxford Dragons all the way to a 98-82 aggregate win, and but a 45-all draw on the night was just not enough for the Dragons, who went into the actual tournament as pre-meeting favourites. I got to give my congrats to the Scorchers. They woke up second half.
And guess.
And guess, yeah. I don't know who he was. He was just some randomer, I think. But Shads, I got to say, mate, going in as a guest, I lost it.
Hey.
There we go. He's at it again. He's at it again. God, where do you get these photos from, Lofty? I have no idea. I worry about your search history.
Your hard drive, Dan. Your hard drive.
I worry about your history, Lofty. Oh dear. But I'll tell you what, Shads, to start with, you guys were like 10 points down.
I was getting
6 races.
I got to say, Dan, I was absolutely bricking. I thought I brought my Panthers jinx over to the Scorchers. But yeah, and that heat too, I thought, oh my god.
Yeah, boy.
And with the first, but then to be fair, he did have Squall protecting you for 4 laps.
Well, I nearly lost it on that.
He used his rear end really, really well in that race.
Third lap, first corner. Yeah. I went too wide, and I thought, damn.
But after 3 heats, I think you were only 6 points behind in aggregate, and
yeah,
there was nothing said in chat. It wasn't, but no one was really overly worried. But I was, because I thought, oh my god, especially after getting the 3rd place, I thought, God, I've got to do something here, because I was really doing well in training. I thought in practice I was doing quite well. I was quite confident I'd score a few points.
Yeah,
I was a bit disappointed I was taken out of my heat, but I can see why. Because David was putting in some quicker times than me in practice. I mean, I'm not particularly quick. Gating lets me down, as you know. So maybe it made sense to put David in, especially after that 5-1. Yeah. I think if the Panthers would have been, if the Scorchers would have been ahead on the night or level, or the scores would have been a bit further apart, I probably would have took that ride. But I think Dan panicked a little bit.
Me?
No, Jan.
Oh, Jan, sorry.
Jan was skipper. I think he panicked a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's seen me for a couple of days, and he obviously knows what David can do.
Well, I do have to give some credit to Jan because it was his debut referee as well. He was refereeing for the first time, so a big credit to Jan for doing that. And yeah, Ben, I was going to bring you in if I can, bud. Of course, looking at this, obviously, as you said, the Dragons were 10 up after 6. How do you think the feeling in the Scorchers camp was going up until that point? What do you reckon?
I think up to there, maybe, as you say, a bit of squeaky bum time. You know, I mean, looking at the Dragon score, and you look at the individual scores, I think the Scorchers, without Limo, potentially got a bit lucky. You know, with that 10, you would have expected, I mean, from what I've looked at here, with mine, I mean, you look at the drop off from that 10 in front, and it's potentially, you know, 5 points dropped by Squall, with the 2 zeros. You know, Super Dip, well, especially Super Dip dropping 2 points. Steph dropping what you'd expect, at least 2 points in his third ride. You know, and when you look at that, that's 9 points, which would have given them a 91-89 aggregate win. You know, so when you look at it like that, and then especially when the Scorchers have got a guest who scores 3 times more than he did earlier in the season. So yeah, so I mean,
my first win of the season as well. My first race win of the season.
So I mean, when you look at it, I think Scorchers got lucky, but then if you also look at that on the other flip side, is they've obviously pulled it back, but they were without Limo, and if you look at the rider replacement rides, well, you're not going to see Limo scoring 4 points at home.
No.
So actually, if Limo had been there, you know, it probably wouldn't have been a level meeting on the night anyway. But I think that as a previous captain, I would, if I had been in Squall's position, I'd been 10 in front, and we had lost it, I'd been really, really frustrated in that sort of way. Especially when, for me, I'd expect Squall at 6 on 6 rides to have at least scored 12 points, I would have thought. You know, in my own head, from riding with him at the Pies and things like that, and obviously with his experience, over 6 rides, you'd expect an average of 2 points a race. You know, so, and as I say, with Super Dip, I'd expect another 2 points, at least a third. And it goes back to what we were saying about the Wolves meeting, about last places. You know, turn some of those last places even into single points. You know, I mean, you look at Heat 11, and I know how Cam's riding really well, but you would still expect there, even if Cam wins that race, you'd expect Steph to get second, not last.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, Squall is a better rider than David Nofear. They're both in the same number 6 berth, you know, and even just the averages tell you that they're better rider, that Squall's a better rider, but without the experience. But then you would not expect that to be a 5-1 to the home side. So I think, you know, potentially, if you look at it brutally, Scorch has got away with it, especially, you know, with going without Limo. And especially having, you know, Shads turn up and do what he did. You know, so I think that it
Happy
was
to help
probably
looking for guest bookings.
Yeah, I think it would have been a different scenario if you looked at the exact where people have dropped points. I mean, I can't say anything. There's been myself personally, I've gone into races this season and thought, yeah, I'm easy scoring points there, coming dead last, So things can happen. But on paper, I would have thought at least that there's an 11-point swing there on the Dragons side of things. In that meeting in particular, with the lineups that started the meeting, there's an 11-point swing that would have won it by 2 points for them. But, however, Scorchers cracking over two legs to win it, and then move forward to the final against Wolves, which I think, as a media team, I think hopefully we should be able to stream both of them legs as well. I think
that is the plan. Yes, that is the plan.
Yeah, obviously, if I'm reffing one, then that'll probably be an automatic one.
Oh, now Craig's in on the action as well. Jesus Christ. Oh. So it's the Wolves against the Scorchers in the KO Cup final, which will hopefully have live streams. So keep an eye on the old socials for that. And with that being said, we're going to now head over to Shads for his Rider of the Week. Shads,
it ain't you.
Yeah, I gathered that. I ain't going to win it for I ain't going to win it, mate. God forbid.
Well, hang on. Let me get me notes. Notable mentions. JC, obviously, he's 17 points in the SCS, and he's 8 points in the KO Cup. Owen, last week's Rider of the Week, horrific 19 points in the SCS. That was his first SCS of the season, I believe. And he's paid 9 in the KO Cup. Craigie Hurl on his SCS debut this season, although he did mention earlier that he had a 2-rider race, so he's not jumping up and down, getting too excited. Got to mention Hadlington, back to his best, paid 11 from 6. And also decent SCS with 10 points. Craig was definitely in the running this week. He's 16 points in the GP and he's 13 points in the KO Cup. But for the second week running, it's going to be a Wolves rider, I'm afraid, and I'm going to give it to Sizzler for his 21-point maximum. You can't ignore it. And track record.
Yeah. Congratulations to Sizz getting the Rider of the Week from Shads. So back-to-back Wolves riders and in the same household as well. So we're going to take a quick 2-minute breather. We've been speaking for quite a while. When we come back, we're going to have the all-important...
Can I just say the reason I didn't give it to Craig, I'll mention later.
Oh dear.
He's not in my good books at the moment.
Uh-oh. Is that with a certain track that's being released soon, is it?
I'm not saying anything. I'll speak about it later.
Well, we are going to get Craig on at some point to talk about Northside when it's officially released. So that'll be on.
Yeah, I want to talk to him about Northside as well.
Yeah. But anyways, guys, we're gonna have a quick 2-minute break. When we come back, we're gonna have a look at the draws for the reserve pairs and pairs meeting. So stick around for that, and we'll see you in a couple minutes. welcome back to Awful Back, episode 62, with myself, Shads, and BenThompson. We're now going to move ahead to our final part of the show. We're going to have the draws for the STS pairs and reserve pairs taking place at Peterborough. I believe it's next week or week after. Next week, isn't it? Or is
Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe, Dan?
Tuesday and Wednesday, yes. I think it's the reserve pairs Wednesday.
Tuesday.
No, Tuesday.
Oh,
And
Tuesday's
then the main pairs Wednesday.
Ah, brilliant. Thank you very much for that confirmation, Ben. So we're going to have the draw first for the top pairs. Yep. So top pairs coming up first. So we have of course, we have the teams all locked in. So Wolves, Dragons, Cowboys, Scorchers, Panthers, and Spartans. So let's begin the draw. So running up in the first heat, it will be the Pool Cowboys. So that'll be Craig and Bobby. Next up, it's going to be KO Cup finalists, the Powder Horse Scorchers. So a very tough-looking opening heat there between Pool and Powder Hall. So team... Oh, for God's sake. So team number 3 will be the Oxford Dragons.
Lofty's great at these.
I'm worried about his search history. I really am. Christ. So who will the Oxford Dragons face in the opening heats that they have? It will be up against the Newcastle Wolves. So Dragons versus Wolves in an interesting heat 2 there. So just leaves the Panthers and the Spartans. So it will be the Somerset Spartans goes in at number 5, which leaves the Shawfield Panthers going in at number 6. Yeah,
Just like in the league.
You're quite used to that, aren't you, Shaz? Aren't you?
I'm very used to it, unless I'm racing against you.
I ain't the top 3, mate. So
I'm a
there we go.
Now, Dan.
Yeah. Well, same as me then. Same as me.
I'm expecting much from me now.
Yeah. So those are the draws. Of course, we're unaware of who's going to be in the lineups. So there we go. That's I think that draws wrong, isn't it? It's saying Powder Hall's on top. Should be Pool.
Oh.
Unless that's the reserve pairs. Yeah, no, you've just done the reserve pair draw.
There we go.
There you go. So the season 20 BL pairs taking place at Peterborough. Track record holder Craig. So you've got Pool versus Powder Hall in the first race, and you've got Oxford, Newcastle, and then Somerset and Shawfield. Ben, of course, we don't know the lineups yet, but who stands out for you as potential winners in this one?
One thing I didn't do any research on.
Uh-oh.
Going from just top of my head, I think just pulling one out there, I'm going to say Wolves. With who's that? I'm trying to think averages. Well, even just the top. Well, you've got Owen now in there as well, haven't you? So
yeah.
I think father and son duo that could be a power one, especially if they carry their.
Paris and Sizzler obviously got to.
Yeah, I mean, he and even if it was Sizzler and Owen from, obviously, if you look at the SCS and the GP, they can carry that form. But yeah, as you say, Shads, probably Sizzler and Powell.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, Paris is not. It's So it could
Was
be
he not
Ad.
qualified?
Would it be Ad, Owen, and Sizzler top 3 now?
Yeah, because
I think
Powell's
so.
fourth in the averages, so he won't qualify for it.
Crikey. Well, no, unless there's
Unavailability.
unavailability, it could still be in it. It's still whatever 2 of the 4 you put in there. It's pretty strong.
Yeah. I think if your only other option as well is potentially Dragons with Stefan, and that's got to be 101
Yeah, if it's available.
because he didn't ride in enough meetings for his average to change. Is that right?
It's so hard. It's so hard to pick a winner out of this because you don't know who's riding.
Yeah, because and also Bobby might turn up.
I mean, we had a
Cows.
shock. We had a shock. Was it a couple of seasons ago with was it Stefan and Big Slow Caney, and they went and won it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think
No, that was when they were the Edinburgh Cowboys, weren't they? Edinburgh Cowboys.
Caney had a terrific meeting that night.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I think as well there was one where it was one. I know it was the reserve, but I think it was Weymouth, and it was Hobnob and Big Slow Caney came in as a guest for pies. I think it was. I think any pairs meeting, I don't think it's one of them. I don't think you can really name a winner beforehand, if I'm honest, because it's always close.
So is this like a straight 15 heat, no semi-finals or final, or is it just like straight through?
I believe it's straight 15.
Okay.
There's
And
nothing
then-
on the spreadsheet that says a final.
No, I think,
And
then
also it's a track that no one, don't believe anyone has recordings on.
yeah,
No,
and with
it's
it being a 4-3-2-0 scoring, I think it'll then be based on if there is a tie for points, it'll be which pairing beat.
Who beat who?
Yeah, who beat who in the individual race.
Yeah. Power saying best be straight 15.
It will be. It will be.
Yeah.
It was.
So we can't really pick a winner out of these ones in the main pairs. But I do have the reserve pairs list as well on me, so I can let you know obviously who they might have in the squads. So I believe now we're going to have the reserve pairs draw.
Yeah.
I think I've already might have been done. There we go. So reserve pairs.
Oh.
So,
There we go.
Buddy Tank's got the things the way around. Okay, so first up, here we go. So first out the hat, it will be the Powder Hall Scorchers, and they consist of David No Fear, Tin, and Alan McNally. So those are the Scorchers. So out of those 3 to choose from, you'd say they'd be they go for DNF and Tintin, of course, with a reserve. Next will be the Wolves, and they have out of Le Sorcier, Pompey, and Hadlington. So again, another strong pairing there for the Wolves. Next will be the Panthers with Shad. Well, with you two lads, Shad Tutty and BenThompson.
Yeah,
you getting some nosebleeds there, boys.
Ben and Hutty on the same average now, so it could be either of those two.
Yeah. Next up will be the Spartans, Skyrider, Tank, and Method. To choose from out of those 3. Next, we have the Pool Cowboys, JC, Rossi, and Hobnob. So looking very strong there is the Cowboys, which just leaves the final team, the Oxford Dragons. Wall, Heppel, and yours truly, Chester 430, in for the Dragons.
I like the look of that league table a lot better than the other one.
I wonder. Oh, for God's sake, Craig. For God's sake. Oh,
broke back STS.
How romantic.
oh, damn it. They have way too much time on their hands. And the worst thing is, I've got these two week in, week out at Cycle Speedway now because they're both in the same goddamn team. Minibus trip's going to be very entertaining this year. God, blimey. Anyways.
Are you as crap as that as you are as STS?
Wow, I ain't saying anything. So without knowing who's in for each team, Shads, who do you think's going to be the spoiler in this reserve pairs?
I think if Squall rides for the Dragons, who else is at reserve with you? Heppel.
Heppel.
I think Dragons could do something. I think if it's Heppel and Squall, I think Squall's by far probably the best reserve out of all of those teams. I should think on paper.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hard to say unless until you see the lineup. Like we said before, there was the prize the other year with the Cowboys. I don't think anyone expected Big Sir Canny to do much.
Mm. So Ben, who's your obviously I'm sure you'll be in this meeting. As a neutral, who do you think's good, or as a who do you fancy in this one? Have you done some research?
I haven't, but from the names that obviously you've just reeled off, for me, it's got to be between Wolves and Spartans. I think that if I had to put money on one team, it would, if Skyrider and Tank Ride, I think it's got to be the Spartans.
Wow.
Just for consistent strength.
Yeah.
Is the, because remember, this meeting's not about winning races. It's about your seconds and your thirds. And as you say, Shad's not coming last. And
yeah,
for me, Skyrider and Tank, especially with Tank's ass, and I think he'll be able to, keep it, even if he's keeping somebody out of the back. And I mean, I've not done any laps yet, but from what I've heard, it's a bit similar one-liner. So, that backside of Tank's going to come in handy. So if Sky and Tank can gate, I think that's where my money's going.
Because this isn't Peterborough V2, is it? It's a completely different. Different one.
Yeah. So I think that's, even though potentially I might be in the meeting, then I think that's where we could see, a spoiler to some people. But I think if those two ride, because obviously Method didn't turn up for the SCS, so is he going to be available for that? So you would have thought that it's going to be them two.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's all wow. It's meetings like these that you don't know nothing about, like who's riding and stuff, to pick a winner. And like I said, it's all down to that 4-3-2 scoring that we have. Yeah, it should be an entertaining meeting. or meetings, should I say, rather. Not sure if we're getting these streamed either. I think we're just going to keep with the KO Cup, because of course with skywriting, if he does, so we don't know what's going to happen. So, but I'm sure we'll find out.
Ben, you'll be riding, so you won't be reffing it.
Yeah, it'll all be we'll work it out. We'll work it all out in the end. So, with all that being said, we've gone quite a long time on this show. It's been actually a great show. I think we can call it there.
Especially the graphics.
Yeah, the graphics been great.
And the pictures as well.
Not sure about the ones in the not sure about the ones in the chat. Anyways, lads.
Oh, hang on a minute.
Yes.
I've got to say, I want to mention the North Side track before we go. I was in the practice. I think once Craig had opened it up to just not him and his mates, and let anyone else have a go. I think I went in one night and there was 2 rounds of 15 or 2 rounds of 10 races, and I think I finished first or second in most of them just by riding the white line. And then Crafty Craig, he slowed down the inside line and made the outside hugging the fence really, really fast because he knows I can't ride the fence. And so now my dive bombs on the inside are worthless. So thanks very much, Mr. Nethercott. Thanks for ruining my pairs on the Tuesday. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Well, we will say we will get Craig on at some point once Workington / Northside has been released. Yeah. Oh, Shads and Craig getting into a bit of a heated discussion there. Skyrider shush. Anyways, chaps, I think we can wrap up tonight's show. Here's what's on next week. So we have the week 10 pairs and reviews, reserve pairs reviews, and then of course the week 11 league previews. I hope so. Yeah, and then of course we've got the Rider Week as always. So it just leaves me to say a good night. Oh, of course, the follow us on the social medias: Facebook, Instagram, the website, X, and YouTube. All the details are on there on your screen. Shad, it's been a pleasure. I bid you a good night.
Yeah, good night, and thanks to Ben for sticking in. I hope thanks Mum's recovering well.
Yes, I agree as well. And of course, the pod should be dropped tomorrow at 8 o'clock on YouTube. So watch out for the upload on that. Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks for all your input. And of course, hopefully we'll see you again soon. So it's a good night from you.
Yeah, good night. Thank you very much for having me. And I'll be doing the background hopefully next week.
Nice job, Ben. Well done, mate.
Nice one, mate.
It's all right. Thank you.
No worries. So it's a good night from Shad, a good night from BenThompson, and it's a good night from me, Chester 430. We've been all four back, and look forward to seeing you again here next week. And take care, and all the best. Good night.